So I'm Jeff Schoep. As of I spent 27 years involved with the National Socialist Movement, which is considered the largest Nazi party in the United States. The last 25 of those years I spent leading that organization. The conversation that Daryl just had up here today, talking about sitting down and understanding, having compassion, having dialogue. Dialogue is more important than anything anyone could imagine as far as getting to people, as far as reaching them. When you're in the movement, you are in, I call it like a prison of the mind, but you're in this echo chamber, you're in a bubble, and everyone that you know is inside that bubble. Everyone that your support system, you quite often, you lose family members when you're involved in this kind of extremism. You lose track of everything. You lose track of your humanity. You lose track of who you are. One of the things that I started noticing the last couple years that I was involved in the movement, and this is going to sound incredibly hypocritical, but I started getting angry because I thought the press and the public were dehumanizing people in the movement. Now, I was able to see that, but I didn't see that here I was a person that had been dehumanizing other races and other religions my entire life. How hypocritical could someone in that position be even talking about dehumanization when they didn't humanize others? We blocked off in our minds, those of us that were in the movement, that were in this extremist movement, whether it's the Klan, whether it's the National Socialist Movement, or any other type of white nationalist, you block out the humanity of others. Meeting Daryl was an incredible experience for me, and he planted a lot of seeds. You know, we talk about planting seeds up here. Sitting down with me like that and talking to me like a human being and seeing how much we had in common and how much of similar interests we have. We had a lot more in common than we had differences. But planting that seed, even though I did not leave the movement in 2016, that was a key part in my de-radicalization process. Another was, in particular, hearing Daryl's story about when he was a young man in the Cub Scouts, in the Boy Scouts, how people were throwing rocks at him. And he thought that the people didn't like the Boy Scouts. They were throwing rocks at him because he was black. As a father, when he told me that story, when he explained that to me, it bothered me on the inside. But yet, we were filming for a product for the movement, so I didn't let on that was bothering me. But that touched my humanity. And a couple of years later, or within the next year, I was filming on another project called White Right Meeting the Enemy with my friend Dia Khan, who was another person that helped greatly in the de-radicalization process. By the end of that movie, Dia had said to me, she said, the movement that I was a part of caused her to hate herself and feel ugly as a child. And she had explained a similar experience to what Daryl had gone through. I'm sitting across from this woman, I'm on camera, and I'm sitting across from her, and I can see and feel her pain and how that scarred her and hurt her as a person. In the movement, we dehumanized others, and we blocked out those things. We wouldn't allow ourselves to feel. If you showed emotion, that was considered weakness. So here she's telling me about this, and this is a person that I consider a friend, you know, and I can see and feel that pain. Being able to have that dialogue, which most people in the movement don't give themselves that opportunity or don't allow themselves to have that opportunity, but being able to take that in and feel that is what helped in a lot of ways in the de-radicalization process. Other things, other factors came into play as well, but the deepest, most meaningful things came from dialogue and conversation. And I know it's hard to say, to come here and say, hey, you should sit down with someone in the National Socialist Movement or in the Klan. Not everybody can do what Daryl does. I mean, he's an incredibly unique, brave, courageous, and intelligent individual. And it takes a lot of strength to be able to sit down with somebody that you feel hates you. That takes tremendous courage. But I can tell you that no one has ever left the movement by getting punched in the face. In fact, when we got into violent confrontations over the years, those type of things further radicalized us. Those type of things further pushed us into that bubble. So when you hear people say, oh, we should punch a Nazi in the face, okay, that feels good for about 2 seconds. But what you're doing is you're shoving that person farther back into that echo chamber, farther back into that bubble. If you really want to make a change, you need to understand why people are in those places and how they got there. And I forgot all about my clicker here. But radical to redemption. So I was a pretty radical individual. The National Socialist Movement is the largest, as Daryl was saying, is the largest Nazi organization in the United States. And in the last few years, as I was going through my de-radicalization process, I started changing some of the things that were going on in the movement before I left, because in my mind, I thought I could make it less radical, that I could make it more palatable for the public. We stopped using the swastika in public. We changed it to an odal rune. We did things like that. I was calling it a white civil rights organization. And looking back at it now, I mean, it's kind of, humorous isn't the right word, but ridiculous. When you're outside of the movement, you thought, who in the world would have thought you could change the National Socialist Movement into a white civil rights organization? That's not even possible. You cannot change the Nazi Party into a white civil rights organization. But in my mind, as an extremist at that time, I truly believed that. So here's some images of me growing up. Tell a little bit about my story here. Everybody has a different story of how they got involved in this. For me, I came from a very normal family, a very normal household, middle class, working class parents. You can see there I am with my sister family. And but my interest in the movement, everyone has a different story. My interest in the movement started with history. My grandfather fought in the Third Reich on the side of Adolf Hitler. My great uncles also did as well. So my fascination came from a historical interest. Later, that developed into hatred and all the things that come with being a part of the movement. Here's some pictures, images of me from some of the early years. You can see a couple of the guys posing with the rifles, and there you see an image of me holding up a noose. That was in the late 90s, and that was at the state capitol in Topeka, Kansas. So you can see there was no bones about it, about some of the hatred and the anger in the movement back in those days, and in my heart as well. This picture actually was from 2015 or 2016. Actually, let me correct that. This picture is from 2017 or 2018. This was one of the last public events that I was at, and you can see the swastika lighting and you can see the odal runes. So this was definitely in 2017 or 2018 in Georgia, and I'm in that picture as well. So you can see some of the anger and some of the hate that we had in those days, And I hesitated about preparing this picture introduction because I thought when people see these images, it brings up all kinds of emotions, and none of them are good. But I think, and Daryl had said too, it's really important for people to see these images so they kind of get an idea of how deep and how involved people get in these, and that literally anybody can be recruited into a movement like this, and how easy that is. I mean, we tailored our recruitment tactics, and I say we in past tense of the time that when I was in the movement, we tailored our recruitment process to the individual in a lot of different ways. If someone was religious, we brought them material on religion. If someone had a bad experience with a black person, then we'd focus on that. If someone had a bad experience with the Jews, we would focus on that. Any particular thing we would hammer away at if we needed to further radicalize the individual. This was a picture from one of the National Socialist Movement rallies. You can see me speaking there. I believe that was in Pikeville, Kentucky in 2017 or 2018 as well. And you can see, we don't have audio for this clip, but these are the kind of things that the National Socialist Movement would do. We were involved in political activism in the streets, rallies, video game production, music production, leaflets, podcasts, media, DVDs, anything you can think of, and old school leafleting and newsletters and things like that. This was some of the things that we would do as far as political activism in the streets. And the idea of these protests is any chance that we would get to fight, we would do so. Now, we were under strict regulations that no one could hit anybody unless you were struck first. But, as I said earlier, the whole punch a Nazi in the face thing, it feeds into the narrative. It feeds into the narrative. That's exactly what we wanted in those days. That's exactly what those men and women want. So when you're out there, you're protesting. I think silent protesting or protesting in general are great. I mean, you should not allow these things to go unopposed. But I can tell you from experience, being there and being in those demonstrations, the more violent they were, the more riled up the men got, and the more they wanted to come to the next one. There was an event in Tupelo, Mississippi one time where there was no counter-protesters. There was literally no one there. And it was NSM and Klan together at that rally. And everyone had said this was the worst, most boring rally they'd ever been at. And I thought, oh no, at the time I thought, we can't have rallies like this anymore. People aren't going to show up. So, the public doesn't think of it like that, and the other side doesn't think of it like that either. They don't realize how demoralizing it is. When you're in a movement like this, we manipulated the media. We wanted the media coverage. We got no media coverage in Tupelo. It was literally like a ghost town when we were there. Very effective, very effective. So I remember hearing later that night from just about everybody, why couldn't this be like what happened in New Jersey where we were fighting in the streets and all that kind of stuff? This was terrible. I don't even want to come. So that's pretty telling, when you look at movement activism. There's another picture, I think that was from Shelbyville, Tennessee. I can say, 25 years I've done public speaking. Never have I done, until this last few months, have I been speaking out publicly against the movement. And I can tell you that at first I thought, wow, I've had 25 years of speaking experience. This is going to be easy to speak out. Absolutely not. This is some of the most difficult things that I've ever done is to speak out. For a man to admit he was wrong about his belief systems, a man to admit that he was wrong about how he viewed the world and other people, spending a lifetime involved in this type of movement, and to be able to talk now in the movement, if you showed emotion or had any kind of empathy for others, that was seen as a weakness, and you could be targeted even from amongst your own organization or other organizations that would see you as having weakness. So I can tell you just from personal experience, talking about wrongs and talking about regrets and feelings and things like that is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. So I'm humbled and I'm honored to be here, and I'm humbled and honored to have friends like Daryl Davis, Dia Khan, and the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and the other wonderful people that have given me the opportunity to be able to, and people like yourself, to be able to listen and give us the chance to have a dialogue and talk about these things, because we can truly make a change in this country just by listening to one another and understanding. And I cannot read this backwards in the mirror, but you can see one of the quotes up here, and this has been since I left the organization. I'll just leave it up there for just a second. There's Daryl and I and Dia and I. And this started with dialogue, and it helped in the de-radicalization process more than I can explain in words. But it's that human connection, and it's the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, the understanding of others, and mutual respect. In the movement, people always talked about how important it was to respect this, respect that. we weren't used to getting respected by other people. We always saw the media as our enemy. When you're in the movement and you're in that echo chamber, you are at war with the world, literally. You are at war with all the other races. You're at war with half of the white race. You're definitely at war with the government. You are at war every single day. So I explain being out of the movement like I am now for the last year as being out here in civilian life. So bear with me, please, as I'm learning how to behave out here in civilian life. Because I mean, literally, when you're in an extremist movement, whether it's jihadism, whether it's a gang, whether it's white supremacy movement, black supremacy movement, any type of extremism or far left extremism like some of the Antifa groups. If you're in any type of extremism, it can become your whole entire world, and you don't have a normal way of seeing the rest of the world and understanding other people and having compassion for that. So, I was speaking out as much as possible to try to get people to disengage and then de-radicalize from those extremist movements. And here's a few of the news clippings, some of the things since then. And I know we're running low on time here. So I'm gonna, this was here, that was in California, speaking at the State of Hate. It was a select Senate or congressional hearing there. And that was in Turkey. That was actually the first thing I had done after I retired originally when I left the movement. And the movement's okay with people retiring. But when you start speaking out against it, they consider you and brand you a traitor. So the first thing I had actually done publicly after leaving the movement was speaking in Ankara, Turkey at the International Symposium on radicalization and countering extremism. So that was pretty interesting, meeting a lot of people from different parts of the world that are trying to understand this, this type of extremism and trying to fix the problems that we're having in this country and around the world, really. And there's another quote, I can't read backwards, but I believe it's about compassion and understanding. And I'll close with that. I know we've got a lot of other important questions and people that are going to come up here and speak. Again, I'd like to thank NYU for having me, for Daryl for inviting me, and all the wonderful people that are participating. And thank you and the audience for listening and being open-minded. And hopefully we can all take something away from what's learned here today and make this a better country for everyone.